My name's Tina, and about a year and a half ago our family bought 140 acres off the grid in Australia, and we call it Chimney Creek Farm. We're currently camping in and around our shed, and we dream of building a more sustainable life. We've been working on a few projects in the kitchen. Let me show you. My mum gave me all these old coffee jars, and I've just rearranged all our herbs and spices. I just need a proper shelf now for them. They look amazing though. I love being able to see all the different colours pop through the glass. And I'm also on day 6 of building and feeding my sourdough starter. It's a gluten-free one, and it's just we've had a lot of hot days the last couple of days, and the sourdough starter has exploded and basically popped out of the top of the jar. I think I've had too much to start with, but I think it's a good sign. I might need to halve this starter into 2 different jars now. I used the instructions to make the sourdough starter from gluten-free on a shoestring.com, but I accidentally doubled the recipe, and that's why it's ended up like that. So sourdough bread doesn't use commercial yeast to rise. Instead, it uses like a naturally fermented flour starter, and it's mixed with water, and it contains wild yeast and good bacteria. That's what makes it rise, and it has a bit of a tangy flavour, and it's slightly chewy as well. All the sourdough breads I've seen everyone making out of regular wheat turns out beautiful. I'm just a bit concerned how a gluten-free sourdough loaf is going to go, but I'll show you the end product soon. For those of you that have been following along with us on our journey, you'll know that Eli had to have a bone marrow biopsy to test him for leukemia, lymphoma, and a range of other things. He's recovered well, but we're waiting for the results still. We have these big holes everywhere in our ground. I'm a bit concerned about what might be in them. If you recognise them and you know what they are, let us know in the comments below. Our rescue puppy Truffles seems to have a lot of fun digging in them though. With my surgery and Eli's surgery and a funeral to attend, we've kind of been a little bit all over the place lately. The town that's about 20 minutes drive from here has a hospital, but it doesn't even have any doctors that work in it. They have to fly the doctors in. So yeah, we've had to sort of be here, there and everywhere. There's nothing like the feeling of driving back to Chimney Creek Farm though. I'm very excited to be getting some kitchen cupboard doors put on under the sink. We have rodents around the shed, and one got in and tried to eat all our food, so this will definitely add an extra layer of protection to our food. There's nothing better than waking up out here. So my gluten-free sourdough starter is bubbling, which is a good sign, and I used the discard to make some pancakes which tasted beautiful. So I'm just going to dehydrate some celery leaves for making some celery powder for soups and stews and things like that. I normally take the stems off because the stems take so long to dry out, and then I give them a bit of a wash and put them in the dehydrator. They recommend the temperature to be on about 35 degrees, but I find that temperature a little bit low on this machine, so I normally put it up a bit higher. And I'm making some Penang curry tonight for dinner. My dad's wife, Mon, is a lady from Thailand, and her children are also from Thailand, Fern and Photo, and recently she made me some Penang curry and I just loved it, and I got a bit of a taste for it, so I decided to make it a few times myself, and I'll just show you the process. And obviously it's not going to be as authentic as it would be if my stepmother Mon made it, but I'm giving it a go anyway. So I'm making this Penang curry with beef, and I've got a chuck steak here, and I'm just going to be slicing it very thinly. This is the key to keeping this kind of meat tender. So Penang curry comes from a base of a red curry paste. I might make a separate video on making the red curry paste, but basically it's made of dried red chilies, coriander roots, coriander seeds, peppercorns, red onions, garlic, lemongrass, galangal, lime zest, ground mace, salt and shrimp paste. Basically you just grind it all up in a mortar and until it becomes a paste, and then you can keep it for about 2 to 3 weeks. And we also freeze our curry paste in ice cube trays as well. Then you can just pop them out and use them whenever you want them. So there's lots of different ways of the way that you start to cook a curry, and some people might fry the onion and garlic first in a bit of oil and then add the meat. Sometimes people might fry the paste first and then add the coconut cream or milk. There's lots of different ways of doing it, but Paul and I went to a Thai cooking school up at Yamundi called Spirit House, and basically the way that they told us to do it was to add the coconut cream until it cracked and then add the paste into it as well. When a coconut cream cracks, it separates the oil from the solids. I can't recommend the Spirit House cooking classes enough. They were so informative, very educational. We learnt a lot, and it was also very romantic, and it was something that I would love to do again. We've been there twice already. I might put a link in the description below. Anyway, so basically we're using a bit of onion, extra onion and garlic, and we're also dicing up that chuck steak, and we're adding some carrots and capsicum to the mix as well. So we might also add some extra sugar or xylitol, some fish sauce, and you should be adding some peanuts as well. We didn't have peanuts this time, but that is part of the recipe. And kaffir lime leaves are also part of the paste. You can also put some fresh herbs and spices in it, like Thai basil or something like that. And Penang curry basically tastes like a cross between red curry and peanut satay mixed together. It's absolutely delicious. I can recommend. So my celery leaves have been dehydrating for about 4 hours now, I think, and I'm just going to check on them, see how they're going. If I touch the leaves then they feel a bit crunchy, I normally just try to crush them up in my hand to see if they're all dry properly. And these are just about done. So you could just crush them up and leave them like that, but I also grind them up into a powder with my NutriBullet. And so they basically start off with this much and end up with this much, which is not very much, but obviously it's pretty strong after it's been dried and processed down to that. So I ended up putting my gluten-free sourdough starter into 2 different jars, so I have 2 going now. You can only appreciate the beauty of a sunrise if you've waited in the darkness. Now I'm just going to make a Silverbeet, leek and feta slice with mint and parsley. And this is the mint from our garden, so I'm super excited. So I've just washed and finally chopped up my fresh herbs, and I've greased a baking dish, and I've just started stir frying with a little bit of oil some of the Silverbeet, and added in the leek as well. It's for about 4 or 5 minutes. In the meantime, I've just been whisking up some eggs. And so I'm adding in basically about a cup of gluten-free self-raising flour to the Silverbeet and leek mixture. And then I'm adding a whole bunch of grated dairy-free cheese that I had on hand, and also some goat's cheese feta. And then I'm adding in the eggs that have been whisked up and just combining it all. Now I'm just adding my mint and parsley, my fresh mint and parsley that I had chopped up earlier, and just combining all of that and adding some salt and pepper as well. And so all of that now just goes into the baking tray and into my barbecue to bake. And this is what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. It's just so beautiful and it tastes amazing. And as part of our agreement with the rescue people who we got truffles from, they will pay for her to get desexed, and she's 6 months old now, so she had to go get that done. She is recovering well now though, but unfortunately my Uncle Paul died and we had to go to Grafton to the funeral. Such a sad time for the family. Uncle Paul was a big man with a big personality, and he had a booming voice. He loved singing in bands, and he had a great appreciation for music, and that was so nice to grow up with. Him and Auntie Eileen used to always have us for Christmas, and he always used to belt out a Elvis song after lunch. He's buried right near my Uncle Rex and also one of my best friends, Brad. And speaking of Brad, I don't know if you remember that I was given this avocado tree from Brad before he died, and then we tried to transplant it into the ground here, and because we disturbed the roots so much we thought it had died, but look, it's starting to come back and I'm so excited. I hope that the winter frost doesn't get it though. So I'm going to make a sweet chili sauce. You won't believe how easy it is, and it tastes so much better than those sweet chili sauces you get at the store. So here I've got 4 big chilies, and I'm just going to halve them and de-seed them. These ones, the big ones, are actually not really very spicy at all, so even though it looks a lot, it's actually quite mild really. This classic Thai sauce can be used with all sorts of dishes. It's great with things like fish cakes, spring rolls, fritters, that sort of thing. And this recipe makes 2 cups of sweet chili sauce. So if you like it spicy, you don't need to scrape the seeds out at all. I'm just chopping up these chilies, but it doesn't really matter. You don't have to make it neat or tiny or anything like this because you're going to be pounding it in the mortar pretty soon anyway. So basically you need to pound the chilies, the garlic, the coriander root and some salt, about 1 teaspoon of salt should be fine, into the mortar, and you pound them all together. And you can always adjust the chilies and the garlic to your own tasting, and if you like it really spicy then you can get the smaller types of chilies instead. So we don't really need to make a paste, but we just want to make sure it's all ground down into small particles basically. And so I just chop up the coriander roots a little bit before I put them in the mortar as well. But the act of actually pounding everything actually brings out the amazing flavours of each of those ingredients. I've always had a love of Asian food and cultures, and they have such complex and fresh flavours. I love that the essential ingredient when cooking Thai food is respect. Respect for the raw ingredients and their just picked freshness, for the crucial balance of flavours of hot, salt, sweet and sour, and for the culture which created such an exotically fragrant dish. and stir into the labour of love that goes into pounding out the spicy paste at your mortar, and have the perfect recipe for an inspiring eating experience. So once everything's been pounded up, then you want to transfer all of this to a saucepan and stir in either you can use a cup of white sugar. I used a half a cup of xylitol, and you need to put in half a cup of coconut vinegar and half a cup of water, and you just simmer that for about 5 minutes. And then just give it a bit of a stir every now and then. And then stir in a tablespoon of fish sauce and remove from the heat. That's basically it. And then you just pour your sauce into a jar or a bottle, and you can add some coriander leaves as well, just to serve with as a garnish. And this was how my first gluten-free sourdough bread loaf turned out. It was really crunchy and beautiful on the top when I cut through it. It seemed very dense and moist on the inside, not light and fluffy like I had hoped. But then again, I didn't have the stand mixer or the equipment that was recommended in the recipe that I used. So I might have to try to invest in a stand mixer or try out a different recipe next time and see how I go. But it tastes okay. It's just gluten-free bread is always a bit more dense and chewy, but yeah, I'd like to try to have a go at improving it in the future. But I had a go, and it's only my first go, so that's always a learning experience. Thanks for joining us here on our journey. We really do appreciate it, and I'll chat to you next time.